There's a few major mistakes that you might be making in Halo Infinite that are causing you to lose more games and a lot of your one-on-one BR fights. And if you correct them, you'll likely see an improvement in your amount of kills as well as your gunplay. So let's talk about those as well as how to correct them so you can improve in Halo Infinite. And as we get started, subscribe for more Halo Infinite tips each week. And the mistake number one that we'll talk about is when people jump in close range BR fights with no cover around. What I've noticed a lot of players doing is as they get into a one-on-one gunfight, especially within close range, they will jump about halfway through the gunfight. And that's honestly one of the worst things you can do if there's no cover around you. The reason is your trajectory in the air is very predictable. When you jump mid-fight out in the open, it's going to be very easy for most players, if they have any skill at all, to be able to hit you with the headshots because they know exactly where you're going to be going as well as when you're going to land. And a lot of players do it out of panic. They think it makes them harder to hit, but really, it makes you even easier to hit. You're much better off to stay on the ground and strafe to avoid enemy gunfire. And it's much more difficult to hit an enemy on the ground strafing than it is hitting somebody in the air. What you'll see a lot of times from inexperienced players is they'll get into a close range fight, shoot 2, maybe 3 BR shots, and then jump and either strafe to one side or the other. Which honestly, that's one of the worst things you can do. And you'll see it over and over too. A lot of people will keep doing it because they think it's a viable strategy, but it's not, man. You got to stay planted on the ground. Strafing back and forth makes you much more difficult to hit versus when you're in the air. So that's mistake number one to correct. Stay planted. Don't jump up in the air when you get in a close range fight. It becomes a habit eventually, but you got to break that habit. But there are times when it's good to jump, like when you're jumping out of cover to try and get an enemy who's running away, or you're trying to peek above a certain obstacle that an enemy is running back away from for you to get one last headshot on somebody who's one shot. That's the perfect time to jump. But as a general rule, you're out in the open, don't jump while you're fighting, stay planted, strafe back and forth. Mistake number two that a lot of inexperienced players will make is throwing grenades in the middle of a close range gunfight when there's no cover around. The reason this is a mistake is because when you're out in the open and you throw a grenade, that takes away from the time that you could actually be shooting the enemy. And most of the time, if you're not in an enclosed area, the enemy is gonna easily just jump away from the grenade and avoid damage altogether. And a lot of times while they're jumping away, they can still shoot you because they didn't throw a grenade. So mistake number two to clean up is to stop throwing grenades while you're in a close range gunfight in the middle of the fight. This is what you want to do instead. Throw your grenades either at the beginning of the fight when you first see an enemy, or at the very end of the fight to finish them off if they're one shot or, you know, something like that. Or when you're able to duck behind cover after throwing the grenade. I'd say about 95% of the time, throwing a grenade in the middle of a fight isn't going to help you win that fight, and it could actually be detrimental just because you're not able to shoot while you do so. So just keeping that in mind, you'll actually be able to use grenades a whole lot more effectively. The third and probably most important mistake that a lot of inexperienced players will make is not letting your shields regenerate fully behind cover. Understand that it's very tempting to get shot in the back and then get behind a wall and then immediately turn around to peek again to see if you can get some shots on whoever shot you. It's kind of like an ego challenge. A lot of us do it, but when you're brought down to 60 to 50% health left, most of the time that's going to be the wrong move. The only time that's really okay is when the enemy that shot at you is very weak, or when one of your teammates is calling for help. And this is where patience really comes in to play with Halo. And patience has been a huge thing in Halo all the way since Halo 2, when it first started back in 2004, 2005. Patience is key. And part of having that patience is letting your shields fully regenerate when you take damage. Staying alive after taking some damage is vitally important, especially in competitive objective games. Whether you're trying to cap a stronghold, stop the enemy with the oddball, or just simply making the enemy pay attention to you to distract them from your teammates, being there as a distraction can often give your teammates enough time to either respawn or make it over to you for help. Let your shield regenerate when you take about 50 to 60% damage. Most of the time, even though you feel confident, you're not going to win that fight. These three mistakes are crucial in Halo Infinite, and if you correct them, I guarantee you're going to see more kills and wins, and you're just going to make yourself a more reliable teammate overall. Now that you've corrected three major mistakes, up next is some Halo Infinite tips that you can click on your screen to help you improve even further with more kills and help you be a more reliable teammate. Check that video out, guys. Again, thank you guys so much for subscribing, and I'll catch you in the next one.